When Joe first tore this engine down and he got the heads off, he freaked out because there was some rust in the cylinders. It's worse over there, but the majority of the rust was, it got water in the cylinders. We think from storage, although it's hard to imagine, but it got rust in there, and it rusted up the cylinders somewhat, but that rust at the top, that's above the rings. That's not going to hurt anything. I told him to just chemically remove the rust and slap it back together, but he didn't like that idea. And he's right. He wanted a fresh hone job, and I understand that, but he was worried about the scoring on the cylinders. Well, 4.5-inch stroke does that. I realize it's only got 3 passes on it plus dyno time. I don't know if the Chevy guy honed it or not when he tore it down, or when he put it back together. It was taken to the Chevy guy in a pile. When Muscle Motors went out of business, it was up there, and he got it out of there before they closed. So, they're right. We need to check everything, do everything. Those pistons are made out of 2618, the good stuff for race pistons, and it has a high expansion rate, and I think Ross wants 8 to 9 thousandths on those. So it's going to be a little different. I think the first thing we should do is just set up the bore gauge and find out where we're at on bore size, and I thought about putting a profilometer in it, but boy, it sure does feel smooth. Wow. But I don't guess it matters if we're going to hone it anyway. Let's just start checking something. I haven't shown you the setup on this dial bore gauge in a couple of years, but first you look at the chart, and it says for 4.25 to 4.625 to use a 7 plus a 2, so that you pick the appropriate little extension here. And I've already screwed that into the dial bore gauge. This is the 7 and this is the 2, as marked on that little thing right there. So screw that in, snug it up, and then we go to the fixture. Now here's the dial bore gauge fixture, and it'll do from 2-inch to 8-inch. Right now, and this is just a big micrometer head where you set the last measurement down to 1/10. Normally you're setting up on a even number. You don't have to use the tenths, but it's that accurate. So you pick the appropriate extension here. This is a 4-inch bore, so these are marked on here, but you can barely see it. So that says 4 inches. So this is going to give us 4 inches of what we're going to measure. And this is going to give us, of course you're supposed to wipe this with your finger and wipe this with your finger. That's 4 inches of our measurement, and then we're going to get the rest with this, and it reads like a regular micrometer. So we're going to, this block is a 4.530 bore, so we'll go 4, and then the 5, and then 30 past that, which will be, this is 25 per revolution, so we'll go down to 5 more on the thimble. And then if you're old, you can put that magnifier on it, and it tells you we're on 5. And then you set the dial bore gauge up like this, and then I'll have to extend that out and then tighten the little jam nut here, because the last block I did was less than 4.530 because that's pretty big. But anyway, so I'll adjust this. Okay. So now I've adjusted this to where, dial this in. Now double check it. They want this to go at least one revolution. They don't want you setting it up where you're only going a little bit. They want it to go at least one revolution before you measure. And that's all there is to setting it up. Okay, let's find out where we're at. That is 1.1 over, well, really 1 over. And 1.3, 1.2, 1.4, 1.3, 1.3. Okay, so that's telling us a few different things. Joe measured the pistons and there was about 5 or 6 thou in the piston, and we're a hair over 1 thou. I'm going to talk to Ross pistons in the morning. I think that's what they are. I got the number off the bottom, and they're the 216, what is it, 2618, the good stuff for race pistons. And they're, you know, they have high expansion, and so they want them set up between 8 and 9. And what we got here is 6 or 7. So we're going to do some remeasuring and calculating. 7, you know, we're under what Ross wants. And there were some spots on the piston and some spots in the cylinder wall, and we were wondering if that was correlated together. I'm under the impression that the Chevy guy honed it. And normally, obviously I've never done a Bulldog block before, but normally, you know, when you hone with a torque plate, it's going to go out 7/10. So if you tried to check it like this, then we wouldn't be getting straight numbers like we just got a minute ago. But I didn't think there's any way he could have torque plate honed it, because there's no way a Chevy guy is going to have a torque plate for a 4.530 bore Mopar. That is very, very specialized. Muscle Motors was a big-time Mopar guy. I'm sure he had one, but no normal person's going to have one. I mean, I bought one fairly recently, but I didn't think I was going to be going to that kind of bore, so my torque plate won't fit it. And if the owner wants it torque plate honed, I mean, we're looking at nearly $1,000 is what I paid for that last Hemi one I bought. So we're gonna have to do some ciphering on that. I mean, I don't know what we can do about if he wants it honed with a torque plate. It's not a big deal to me. It's going to run fine. Nobody's going to know it. I don't expect it's going to make any less on the dyno. It's just something that when you're building we might as well call it very expensive motor, you know. And you expect it to be torque plate honed. So, you know, I want to please the guy, but nobody's going to have a torque plate for that. And that may have been one of the reasons why I told Joe in the beginning, just slap it back together, because it's only got 3 passes and dyno time on it. So if they did it good, but it appears that it's a little tight from the measurements we have so far. So I don't know what to do, but have Joe talk to the owner and See what he wants to do. Okay, after looking at this thing for 3 cigars, I finally came up with a plan. What we want to know is how much would it distort it if we didn't use a torque plate. Okay, we can't use my torque plate to hone it, but we can use a torque plate to distort it. So I got some measurements here of what it was before it was torqued down, and now we'll find out. We just don't know. We've never done a Bulldog block. I did have one viewer chime in and said he had a Bulldog block once, but we don't know if it's going to distort. A guy came in here with a Summit brand small block Chevy the other day to hone it. We put the torque plate on it, and it only distorted it 2/10. 2/10 is not worth putting a torque plate on. You'd be doing good if your hone man could hit within 2/10. So it's not even worth it. But what does this block distort? How much? What have we got to work with? Before Joe's daddy died, he bought a 4,500 block, 4,500 bore to put in his race car. And when he had the heads off one time, I got one of his old head gaskets. So I've got the proper head gasket. We've got the torque plate. Joe didn't bring me any fasteners. And I don't know if they were using bolts. Surely they weren't using stock bolts. It'd be ARP bolts or studs. But he didn't bring them because I told him my torque plate won't do it. But I bought a new set of ARP studs for that 400 project I'm working on. So I loaned the guy mine to do the test. Now let's see where we're really at. By the way, this guy, we're not going to be knocking the Chevy guy. If he held it straight to within a 1/10 or 2, no, I'm not knocking that guy. Let's see where we're at. 1, 3, 5, 7. Before we torqued it, we're 1.3 over 0, which is the 4.530. Stretched it 2/10. Went from 1.3 to 1.5. We'll check the bottom, but it doesn't really affect the bottom. Yeah, still 1.3. The top on this one was 1.1. Stretched it 4. Top of this one was 1.2. Stretch that one more. 5/10. This one was 1.3. Now it's 1.5 or 6. So 2 or 3. So that answers our question. This one was 2, and this one was 3, and this one was 4, wasn't it? So 3 or 4/10 is how much it opened it up from the torque. So at least we have some numbers to give the guy when we talk to him.